I observe in Donald Trump's second presidency not only the return of a controversial political actor, but the beginning of the systematic dismantling of the American world order by its own architect. What has been unfolding in Washington since January 20, 2025, qualitatively surpasses all previous forms of American unilateralism and marks the transition to a deliberate deconstruction of the Pax Americana that has existed since 1945. Trump's America First 2.0 doctrine is not merely campaign rhetoric, but the strategic decision of a nation that now views its global leadership role as a burden rather than a privilege. This transformation is occurring at a historical moment of maximum systemic vulnerability. While China reaches economic and technological parity with the United States, Europe suffers from energy and migration crises, and authoritarian regimes worldwide exploit Western weakness. America consciously chooses retreat. What is presented as a rational realignment of American priorities is, in reality, a capitulation to the costs of global hegemony, a decision with catastrophic consequences for the international order. The speed of this hegemonic dissolution is unprecedented in modern history. While previous hegemonic powers lost their dominance over decades or centuries, America is dismantling its world order within 4 years of active sabotage. Trump treats NATO's Article 5 as a bargaining chip, the global trading system as a zero-sum game, and international institutions as obstacles to American interests. Trump's isolationist turn is rooted in the systematic overextension of American power since the end of the Cold War. For more than 3 decades, the United States has borne the costs of global order while other nations benefited from American security guarantees without making proportional contributions. This structural asymmetry between American investments and global gains has created growing frustration within American society over allies' free-riding. The numbers document this overextension. The United States spends more than $800 billion annually on defense, more than the next 10 countries combined. American troops are stationed in 80 countries, while the US simultaneously runs annual trade deficits exceeding $600 billion. This configuration makes America the global ordering power, while China, Germany, and others benefit from this order without bearing its costs. Yet this calculation ignores the indirect benefits of American hegemony. The dollar, as the world's reserve currency, allows the United States to accumulate virtually unlimited debt, as other countries must hold dollar reserves. American technology companies dominate global markets partly through the soft power of American institutions. The international legal system systematically favors American interests and values. These structural privileges are difficult to quantify, but enormously valuable. Trump interprets this situation as the systematic exploitation of America by clever allies and competitors. His solution is radical. Instead of reforming the system, America exits its role as global hegemon and focuses exclusively on national interests. This strategy may reduce American costs in the short term, but it destroys the foundations of American power in the long run. The historical irony is that America abandons its hegemony precisely when its competitors are at their weakest. China struggles with demographic problems, real estate bubbles, and technological sanctions. Russia is militarily and economically weakened by the war in Ukraine. Europe suffers from an energy crisis and political fragmentation. In this constellation, American leadership would be especially valuable, yet Trump chooses retreat. Threats to withdraw from NATO are the most dramatic symbol of this transformation. Trump does not view the Atlantic Alliance as the foundation of Western security, but as a burden on American taxpayers. His demand that European partners raise their defense spending to 4% of GDP is deliberately set as unachievable and serves as a pretext for American withdrawal. At the same time, Trump pursues a transactional foreign policy that replaces traditional values with deal-making. The promotion of democracy, human rights, and the rule of law are regarded as ideological ballast that hinders profitable relationships with authoritarian regimes. This posture signals dictators worldwide. America will no longer fight for its principles. The United States under Trump operates as an exhausted hegemon that relinquishes its leadership role without establishing a succession arrangement. This strategy is based on the illusion that America can retreat into its continental fortress while simultaneously preserving its global dominance. But hegemony is not a newspaper subscription. It cannot be paused and later reactivated. Washington's new priorities are radically reversed. Instead of guaranteeing global order, Trump focuses on bilateral deals that maximize short-term American advantages. Trade agreements are reinterpreted as zero-sum games in which American gains automatically mean losses for partners. This mentality destroys the multilateral system that America itself had created. China recognizes in Trump's isolationism the historic opportunity to establish its own hegemony. Beijing systematically exploits American withdrawal to expand its Belt and Road Initiative, strengthen alternative international institutions, and position itself as a reliable partner. While Trump dismantles NATO and the WTO, China builds parallel structures to replace American leadership. Decisive is China's strategy of patient takeover. Instead of direct confrontation, Beijing seeks the gradual substitution of the American role. Chinese investments in Africa and Asia, technological standards for 5G and AI, and the internationalization of the yuan create de facto dependencies on China. Trump accelerates this development through American withdrawal from global markets and institutions. Trump's attempts at rapprochement with Xi Jinping are based on the illusion that personal relationships can overcome structural competition. But while Trump seeks transactional deals, China pursues long-term hegemony. These asymmetric objectives make substantive compromises impossible and reinforce Chinese advantages. Europe finds itself in an existential crisis of strategic orientation. Decades of dependence on American security guarantees have allowed European defense capabilities to atrophy, while simultaneous economic integration with China and Russia has prevented strategic autonomy. Trump's threats to withdraw from NATO confront Europe with an impossible choice: either massive military investments amid economic recession, or acceptance of reduced strategic sovereignty. France's Macron and Germany's Scholz strive for European sovereignty, but their efforts remain rhetorical. Europe can neither compete militarily with America or China, nor act economically independent of either. Trump's America increasingly treats Europe as a secondary partner, while China views Europe as a market without strategic significance. Russia and other authoritarian actors interpret American withdrawal as a green light for regional expansion. Putin systematically tests Western reactions through provocations in Ukraine, the Baltic states, and Africa. Trump's signals of understanding toward Russia encourage further aggression, as they demonstrate that America is no longer willing to fight for its allies. I identify three critical escalation pathways in Trump's isolationism that trigger irreversible systemic transformation. First, American withdrawal accelerates regional hegemonic struggles. Without an American presence, China and Japan compete for Asian dominance, Russia and Germany for European leadership, and Iran and Saudi Arabia for Middle Eastern hegemony. This multipolar competition is inherently unstable and prone to conflict. Second, competing institutional systems emerge that fragment global governance. While Trump weakens the WHO, the WTO, and other multilateral organizations, China establishes alternative institutions such as the AIIB, SCO, and BRICS+. These parallel structures create separate spheres of influence with different rules and standards. Third, a security vacuum develops in critical regions. Without American security guarantees, allies must develop their own defense capabilities or submit to new protective powers. This dynamic leads to nuclear proliferation, arms races, and preventive conflicts. I project three likely development trajectories arising from Trump's hegemonic withdrawal. In the first scenario, American isolationism leads to a Sino-centric world order. China exploits the American power vacuum to systematically establish its own hegemony through economic integration, technological standards, and multilateral institutions. Europe, Africa, and parts of Asia become Chinese spheres of influence, while America retreats to the Western Hemisphere. In the second scenario, a multipolar chaos order emerges without a dominant hegemon. Various regional powers compete for limited spheres of influence, while global challenges such as climate change, pandemics, and cybersecurity remain unresolved. International institutions lose functionality, and bilateral power politics replace multilateral cooperation. In the third scenario, abrupt American withdrawal triggers a system collapse crisis in which multiple regional conflicts escalate simultaneously. The Taiwan crisis, the Ukraine war, the Middle East conflict, and other flashpoints explode in the absence of American deterrence. A global recession and institutional collapse force a chaotic reordering of world politics. Trump's America First doctrine is based on the fundamental misconception that global leadership only generates costs. In reality, American hegemony enabled 7 decades of unprecedented prosperity, technological progress, and relative peace. The Bretton Woods system, NATO security guarantees, and American technological leadership created the foundations of the modern world economy. American withdrawal destroys these public goods without replacement. Free sea lanes, technological standards, monetary stability, and conflict prevention, all these functions of American hegemony disappear with Trump's isolationism. Other actors cannot assume this role as they lack both the capacities and the legitimacy. China may match America economically, but Chinese hegemony would be fundamentally different, authoritarian instead of liberal, centrally planned instead of market-oriented, culturally homogeneous instead of pluralistic. A Sino-centric world order would not reproduce the benefits of American hegemony, but would establish a system of Chinese dominance. Europe lacks both the military capabilities and the political will for global leadership. The EU can ensure regional stability, but not global order. Other potential hegemons such as India or Brazil are even less qualified for global leadership roles. What I recognize in Trump's second term is not merely another phase of American foreign policy, but the deliberate liquidation of the American world order by its own leading power. This self-demolition is historically unique. No previous hegemonic power has voluntarily relinquished its dominance. The irony is that Trump weakens America through isolationism rather than strengthening it. Global leadership multiplies American power through alliances, institutions, and soft power. Isolationism reduces America to its continental borders and leaves the world to other powers. Particularly dramatic is the loss of American agenda-setting power. Since 1945, Washington has determined the themes of global politics, from decolonization to nuclear non-proliferation to climate change. American priorities structured the international agenda. Trump's withdrawal cedes these functions to other actors pursuing different values and interests. China is already exploiting this vacuum to establish alternative norms. Beijing's community of shared future replaces American democracy promotion with respect for sovereignty, a euphemism for tolerance of authoritarian regimes. Russian concepts of multipolarity delegitimize Western universal values as cultural imperialism. This ideological offensive is only possible due to American withdrawal from normative leadership. At the same time, America loses its capacity for crisis prevention. The Pax Americana system was based on American willingness to intervene against systemic threats. Trump's America First doctrine signals America will now respond only to direct attacks on American territory. Institutional collapse is already visible. Trump's sabotage of the WTO, WHO, and other multilateral organizations leaves governance gaps that other powers fill. China's alternatives to the G7 and Russia's to the OSCE create parallel institutions with different rules. The world fragments into competing normative systems without shared standards. The coming years will show whether this hegemonic transition unfolds peacefully or catastrophically. Historical hegemonic transitions from Spain to the Netherlands, from Britain to America, were always accompanied by wars. Trump's abdication could trigger similar upheavals. We are witnessing the end of an era. 70 years of American hegemony are being replaced by an uncertain system of multipolar competition. In this new order, it will no longer be American power, but its absence that constitutes the decisive geopolitical fact.